Hi guys, and welcome to Crypto Exposed. Okay guys, got an article here and I thought this one was worth sharing. Very impressive stats here. So it says XRP now boasts a 70% share of the global represented commodity market of $3.5 billion. Yeah, very impressive here. So I'm going to go through a few points from the article and then I'll give you my thoughts at the end. So let's get started. The XRP ledger is now home to more than 70% of the entire represented tokenized commodity market, emerging as the dominant player in the sector. Tokenization remains one of the biggest narratives in the crypto scene in recent years, and the XRP ledger, originally built to support the nascent market, seems to be taking up a reasonable share of the sector. Market data indicates that over 70% of the global represented commodity market on-chain resides within the XRP ecosystem, with Polygon and Arbitrum accounting for the remaining 30%. Global tokenized commodity growth. This is according to data provided by RWA.xyz, a leading analytics platform for the tokenization market. Notably, the worth of the global tokenized commodity market stands at $8.08 billion as of press time. This represents a year-to-date increase of $3.84 billion from the $4.24 billion figure recorded at the start of the year. XRP dominates represented commodity market. Further data shows that while Ethereum hosts most of the distributed market value, XRP dominates in the represented commodity market. Specifically, the XRP ledger accounts for $2.5 billion of the $3.55 billion worth of represented commodity sector. This gives the ecosystem a large dominance rate of 70.4%. For context, these commodities make up about 57% of the total tokenized real-world assets on the XRP ledger, which sits at $4.4 billion. How XRP fares in the overall commodity market. XRP may lead the represented commodity sector, but its shares reduce drastically when considering the overall commodity market, including represented and distributed assets. In this case, Ethereum holds the largest share, with $4.2 billion across all commodities. This represents nearly 52% of the total $8.08 billion in total tokenized commodity value. Meanwhile, XRP's $2.5 billion figure gives it a 31% market share, second only to Ethereum. Okay, so I've just pulled certain parts of the article there. I've not read the whole thing because I just wanted to get some of the highlights from this, but you get the gist from this. So yes, look, at the end of the day, the one thing I will say is obviously at the end you've noticed that, it was talking about Ethereum here. Look, the thing that I'll say about Ethereum is, at the end of the day, we already know when we went through the whole SEC versus Ripple lawsuit that Ethereum did not play fair. They played dirty and they wanted Ripple and XRP out the way. So that we know that for a fact. We literally saw the evidence from the SEC lawsuit. So we know that they were not playing fair. We know that. So they cheated to get where they are. That's just the fact of the matter. The thing I'll say as well with Ethereum is look, I do think Ethereum's going to have its place just because it's got that first mover advantage in regards to it being the second cryptocurrency created, I believe. But even in that regard, we know technology-wise, we know the XRP ledger is just superior. That's just the fact of the matter. Yes, Ethereum are doing upgrades to improve the network, cool, but the XRP ledger already has these things. So at the end of the day, I think this is where XRP is going to thrive overall. I think this is one of those things where, yes, Ethereum will have its place for a while because it is the second biggest cryptocurrency. So naturally, people are going to just flock to it. But when you start to get into the idea of actually using cryptos because of the convenience, the speed, the cost, those kinds of things, and you're not just basing it on, it's the number 2 cryptocurrency, so it's got the biggest, the biggest amount of liquidity and users and that kind of thing. I think that's when you're going to start to see okay, when we actually base it on utility and what these networks can actually do, the Ethereum network's not really that great, right? It's just not that good. We could definitely use other networks that would be, much more suitable for the types of use cases we're doing. In this article, it just said, when it comes to tokenization, this is something that the XRP ledger was designed for. So the XRP ledger is designed for this kind of thing. And look, I'll say this just to be fair, just so you can see that I'm not trying to just be completely biased here. There's certain things that the Ethereum network can do that the XRP ledger can't do. So for example, Ethereum has smart contracts. That's not something that was natively built on the XRP ledger. So in certain aspects, Ethereum can be a better choice in certain things. So look, I am trying to be completely objective here. I'm an XRP holder when it's all said and done, not an Ethereum holder. So I personally prefer the XRP ledger, but I can understand that there's going to be different use cases for different things where there's going to be different networks that you will use, right? Like that's just what it is. So when it comes to certain things regarding smart contracts, Ethereum may be the better choice. But when it comes to like tokenization, payments, that kind of thing, XRP wins hands down. Like that's what it was designed for. That's its, you know, its purpose. So at the end of the day, XRP is always going to outshine Ethereum in that market, right? That's just what it is. So at the end of the day, I look at this at the moment with how it is. And yes, Ethereum have got the biggest share, but in time that could change. Like you got to understand, like this isn't done yet. We're still very early days. We still haven't got, you know, clarity. We haven't got the actual clarity out past or anything like that, regulations. When we start to see this in the long term, this could look very different. And I can give you an example of this, right? I remember back in the days when you used to have Apple Mac computers, and I'm talking about like not, you know, like iPhones that you think of now and the Apple Mac laptops that you've got now. I'm talking back in the day when it was like Microsoft and Apple Macs, and like Apple Macs were kind of looked at as like, it was almost like having a poor version of a computer, right? Like, so if you had an Apple Mac, it was like a poor version of a Windows computer, and people would like, you know, mock you for it. That was the type of stigma that Apple Mac had. Now, Apple are completely, you know, running the show, right? Apple are huge now. They're an absolute force. So it just goes to show you over time that at one point it may look like, you know, you've got one network or product that's kind of ruling the show, but things can change over time. You know, things can drastically change over time. So XRP could easily be fighting for that position with Ethereum. Like, I think there's a very serious chance at some point in the future that XRP could take the number 2 spot. Back in the day, before the, you know, the SEC versus Ripple lawsuit, Ethereum and XRP was battling it out on a daily basis. Like it could be one day, you know, Ethereum's on top, and then the next day XRP's on top. Like that's how like close it was. And then after the SEC lawsuit, that obviously widened the gap. So this is why I say, you know, they didn't really play fair with what they did. But we are where we are, and at the end of the day, XRP, yes, it has got to catch up, but we know that that wasn't really fair, and the fact of the matter is XRP could still catch up. So at the end of the day, this is still very impressive because you understand that XRP has managed to maintain this while actually going through a lawsuit and all of the effects that had on the network, and it still managed to be only second to Ethereum when it comes to the commodity sector and tokenization. So that's still a huge, huge feat. Like that is still very impressive. So to me, that just shows you, like, when we get regulations and things like that and the floodgates really open, there could be way more coming for XRP. You know, the story's not done yet. So there's still way more that we could see unfold here. So just letting you know, there's a lot more potential here. But yeah, again, this is really impressive. And with tokenization being such a hot topic, as I've said before, it's going to be one of the big use cases for crypto in general, because you're just basically turning everything on chain, which is it's going to happen because it's the next evolution. You're turning everything into something where, one, it's more transparent, which the governments are going to love because now you've no longer got privacy, so they're going to love that. You've got 24/7 access, you've got fast, you know, blazing fast transactions that can be done, and they're cheap. So this is the, you know, it's the upgrade. It's the next technological upgrade. It makes sense. So this is going to happen. It's going to be the big thing because, as they say, everything of value will be tokenized. So this is big. So to see XRP where it is, this is still impressive. This is still massively impressive. So definitely something to keep an eye on. And I thought it was worth sharing because we'll see how things are looking like in another, you know, 2-3 years, maybe 5 years. Who knows where XRP could be then? So definitely something here that's worth watching. But I think the stats already are saying a lot. You know, that's very impressive. At the end of the day, to only be second to Ethereum, that's very big. And knowing how Ethereum have had an unfair advantage, it makes sense. So that could all change. So yeah, I'll keep an eye on this, and obviously if I get anything further, I'll be sure to update you. But I'll leave it there. If you did like this video, please remember to like, comment and subscribe so you can be updated for future XRP content. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you can be alerted on when I do drop a new video. Thank you very much for watching this, and I'll see you all on the next one.